Good evening, friends. Welcome back after a long time. Today we are going to talk about quite a few things. That is supply, consumer choice, consumer's equilibrium indifference curve, revealed preference theory, consumer surplus, elasticity, utility, total utility, marginal utility, laws related to utility, that is equimarginal and diminution. Before we proceed further with respect to the lecture, let us understand what we have been studied so far. We have studied what is economics, what comprises of economics, what are the constituents of economics, and in that series we are trying to understand what is demand, what is price, what is market demand, so on and so forth. Today we will be talking about the other component of managerial economics, with respect to which you need to take some decisions, right? Like we take decisions when there is demand, so we also need to take decisions with regards to supply in an organization. So to do that, we need to understand what is supply. Supply basically means quantities of goods or service that a seller is willing and able to provide. Two things are important. You should be willing and you should be able, right? So supply indicates the quantities of goods or services that a seller is willing and able to provide at a given price point. And of course, this price depends upon at a certain point of time, right? So that is what essentially supply means. Put it simply, supply is the total quantities of goods and services that a seller is willing and able to provide at a given price at a given point of time. Of course, this would be possible if other things are remaining same. What are the other things? Other things primarily being income, fundamentally, technology, tastes and preferences, demand. If these things they are same, if they remain same, if they remain constant, ceteris paribus, other things remain being equal. Supply is the total quantity of goods and services that seller is willing and able to provide at a given point of price and at a given point of time. So, what are its determinants? Supply depends upon, first and foremost, that is Px, C, T, G and N, where Px is the price of the product, C is the cost of production, T is state of technology, G is government policy regarding taxes and subsidies, and N is number of firms that exist with respect to that particular product, because supply is going to be dependent upon the total number of firms, similar kind of firms that are there in the market. So supply function is combination of price, cost of production, taxes, government policy and number of firms. So when you have a combination of these, then you can say supply exists, right? Now, what is law of supply? Law of supply is simply put, if the price of the commodities, if the price of goods or services, if they go up, the total quantity that is supplied will also go up. Means at higher price, supplies are more, right? That means supply is directly related with the price of goods or services. It has a direct relations. Unlike in demand, if the price goes up, demand comes down. If the price comes down, demand goes up. Here it is exactly the opposite. If the price goes up, supply goes up. If the prices come down, supply crashes down. So this is the law of supply. Now you might see changes in supply because of its functions. Any change in its functions, that is, if there is price is less, the supply will come down. If the cost of technology it goes up, that is C, if it goes up, then definitely the supply will come down. If government taxes, if they go up, supply will definitely come down. And if the number of firms operating, if they are more in the market with respect to that particular commodity which the firm is manufacturing, definitely the supply will be impacted negatively. More the firms, less will be the supply because of competition. That is the reason why we see some changes in supplies. Now coming back to the other concept, that is consumer choice. Now what do we exactly mean by that? Whenever you say choice, right? Whenever we say choice, we need to understand certain things. Now why does the concept of choice exist, or why is there a need for the consumer or customer to have a choice? Let me give an example. Say for example, you know why Maruti became the leader in passenger vehicle segment? Very simple. Earlier, there were two automobile manufacturers in India with respect to passenger cars. One was Hindustan Motors and the other was Premier Automobiles, right? Which was manufacturing the Fiat or the Padmini, you can call it, the vehicles that you see around Mumbai operating as taxis even now. Now why they didn't survive even though the market was there was because in Hindustan Motors they came up with 4 models in 60 years. With 4 models in 60 years, and Premier Padmini came with 2 models in 60 years. That is, since independence, they didn't come up with models. If you remember, Ambassador was being sold as Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3 and Mark 4. Till Maruti came into existence, only Mark 4 was the latest model that came into existence from Ambassador stable. And Premier Padmini had only 2 models. And because of no choice, what happened? A remarkable thing happened. Because there was no choice, people didn't buy cars. People didn't buy cars. Then came Maruti. It came with a product called as Maruti 800. Slowly it realized that if it is going to have only one product in its portfolio, it's not going to survive. So what did they come up with? They came up with variants in their portfolio.